Have you ever stopped to think about how a sailboat manages to move forward when the wind is coming from the exact opposite direction? It seems like magic. It seems impossible. It seems to defy everything we know about basic physics. But the truth is that there's an ingenuity behind it that'll make you look at any sailboat sailing and think in a completely different way. Most people think that sailboats only work when the wind pushes from behind, like when you blow a paper boat on the water. But the reality is much more fascinating than that, and involves principles that are even used in modern airplanes. And when you understand this, you'll realize that nature hides incredible tricks that humanity took centuries to decipher and transform into navigation technology. So, imagine this scene. You're on a beach, looking at the horizon, and you see a sailboat gliding smoothly across the water. But the wind is hitting your face from the sea, meaning the wind is blowing in the opposite direction to the boat's movement. How on earth is that boat moving forward? The first thing you need to understand is that a sailboat never sails directly against the wind. That would be impossible because you would be trying to push against a force coming directly at you, like trying to walk against a wall. But sailboats use a technique called tacking, or sailing close to the wind, which is basically sailing in a zigzag pattern, forming angles with the wind direction, and that's where the magic starts to make sense. Think of a boat's sail as if it were an airplane wing, only vertical. When the wind hits the sail, positioned at a specific angle, usually between 30 and 45 degrees relative to the wind direction, something surprising happens. The sail doesn't act as a barrier that the wind pushes against, but rather as an airfoil that creates a pressure difference between the two sides of the fabric. On the side from which the wind comes, the pressure is higher, and on the other side, the pressure is lower, and this pressure difference creates a force that pulls the boat forward and sideways at the same time, and it is precisely this force that makes the sailboat move. Sounds complicated. Stick with me, and it will become clearer. The secret lies in the shape and angle of the sail. When the wind passes over the curved surface of the sail, it has to travel a longer path on one side than the other, just as happens on the wings of an airplane when it takes off. This causes the air to move faster on the outside of the curve, and according to Bernoulli's principle, which is one of the fundamental laws of fluid physics, when a fluid moves faster, its pressure decreases. So you have high pressure pushing from one side and low pressure pulling from the other, and the result is a net force that pushes the boat in a direction that is not exactly where the wind is blowing, but at an oblique angle that allows the boat to move against the wind's origin. But wait, because there's another fundamental element in this whole story. The keel. The keel is that part of the boat that's underwater, looking like a giant fin pointing downwards, and without it, the sailboat would simply be pushed sideways by the lateral force of the wind and would never move forward. The keel acts as a point of resistance that prevents the boat from sliding sideways through the water. So when the sail creates that force that pushes the boat forward and sideways at the same time, the keel blocks the lateral movement and allows only the forward movement component to be effective. It's like when you squeeze an orange seed between your fingers and it squirts forward. The pressure from the sides makes it go in a specific direction, and in the case of the sailboat, the keel and the sail work together to direct all that wind energy in a controlled trajectory. Now you might be wondering, but if the boat can only sail at a 45-degree angle to the wind, how does it reach a point that is directly against the wind? The answer is the zigzag maneuver I mentioned before, called tacking or making tacks. The navigator points the boat at a 45-degree angle to the right of the wind, sails in that direction for a while, then turns the boat and points it 45 degrees to the left of the wind, and alternates these directions, creating a zigzag pattern that eventually takes the boat to its destination, even if that destination is exactly in the direction from which the wind is coming. It's a slower process and requires more distance traveled than if you could go in a straight line. But it works perfectly, and that's how navigators have been doing it for centuries. This technique wasn't discovered overnight. For millennia, early sailing ships were extremely limited and could only effectively navigate with the wind coming from behind or from the sides. It was only when someone had the brilliant idea of changing the shape of the sails and adding deeper keels that sailing against the wind became possible. The Arabs pioneered this with their triangular lateen sails, which allowed for much better control of the angle and shape of the sail in relation to the wind. This completely revolutionized maritime navigation, allowing ships to avoid being stuck waiting for favorable winds and to explore routes that were previously impossible. Just think of the impact this had on long voyages of discovery, maritime trade, and the expansion of civilizations around the world, all because someone understood how to use the physics of wind in a completely different way. And there's another fascinating detail. A sailboat's ability to sail against the wind depends not only on the sail and keel, but also on the balance of forces throughout the entire boat. The rudder, the piece at the back of the boat that controls direction, needs to constantly adjust the boat's position to maintain the ideal angle relative to the wind. If the angle is too tight, the boat loses speed and may even stop. In a situation called holding anchor, which is when the sail trembles and stops generating lift. If the angle is too open, the boat moves well, but it's not really going against the wind efficiently. So there's an ideal point, a perfect angle that each type of boat has, where the combination of sail, lift, and keel resistance produces maximum forward movement. And that's what experienced sailors spend years learning to feel and adjust instinctively. And look, interesting, modern racing sailboats have taken these principles to an absurd level of sophistication. The sails are made of high-tech materials that maintain their perfect shape, even under extreme pressure. The keels have aerodynamic designs calculated by computer to generate minimum drag and maximum lateral resistance. And some boats even have movable keels that can be adjusted in real time to optimize performance depending on wind and sea conditions. There are even sailboats that use hydrofoils, which are like underwater wings that lift the entire hull out of the water when the boat reaches a certain speed, drastically reducing drag and allowing them to sail at speeds that seem impossible for a boat powered only by the wind. Have you ever seen those images of racing boats practically flying over the water? It's all based on these same principles I'm explaining here, only taken to the absolute extreme of engineering. But going back to basics, because this is important, the same physics that allows a sailboat to sail against the wind is the physics that explains how airplanes fly, how wind turbines generate energy, how fans move the air in your house. It's Bernoulli's principle and fluid dynamics in action, showing that when you understand how pressure, speed, and curved surfaces interact, you can create movement and force in directions that seem counterintuitive. And that's beautiful, because it shows how nature has consistent rules that work on different scales, from the minuscule to the gigantic. And when we learn these rules, we can do things that seemed like magic to our ancestors. So the next time you see a sailboat gliding elegantly through the water, seemingly against all logic, you'll know it's not magic. It's pure physics applied with intelligence. It's a sail acting as a wing, a keel acting as a directional anchor, a navigator who understands angles and forces and uses all of that to dance with the wind instead of just being pushed by it. It's proof that we humans are incredibly creative when it comes to taking the laws of nature and making them work in our favor, transforming seemingly insurmountable obstacles into opportunities for movement and exploration. And you know what's even more impressive? All of this works without an engine, without fuel, without electricity, just with the wind blowing freely through the atmosphere and the water that's right there under the boat. It's clean energy, it's sustainable technology. It's a perfect example of how we can move around the world using natural resources intelligently. That's why sailing will never die as a form of navigation, because besides being efficient and elegant, it connects us with something fundamental about understanding the natural world and working in harmony with it instead of against it. Now that you understand the secret of how a sailboat sails against the wind, I want you to leave a comment below. Have you ever had the chance to sail on a sailboat? Or, if you've never sailed, after this explanation, would you like to try it? Tell me below about your experience or curiosity about sailing, because I love to know what you think about these fascinating subjects. And take the opportunity to click the like button if this video changed the way you see sailboats, because like helps this content reach more curious people like you who love to understand how things really work. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now, because every week I bring explanations about incredible phenomena of physics, nature, and technology that will expand your mind. And it doesn't stop there. Click on that video that's appearing on your screen right now to continue discovering incredible facts that will make you see the world in a completely different way.